Hello and welcome to this edition of Talk to Al Jazeera. Our guest is Sheikh Sharif, Sheikh Ahmed, leader of the Union of Islamic Courts in Somalia. Welcome, Sheikh.
Would you please explain to me what is going on in Somalia in general?
First, the Ethiopian government had a plan before the Union of Islamic Courts was established. If we re-examine history, Siad Barre's regime was ousted because the Ethiopians supported forces that were opposed to the government. The first person to have allowed Ethiopia to enter our country and perpetrate this abominable act was Abdullah Yusuf himself. They continued their practices. Siad Barre's government was overthrown, tribal wars followed, and then came the warlords who used to receive armament from Ethiopia. Consequently, Somalia suffered a lot because of this war. Governments were formed but were not able to assume their duties. The latest in date was the government of Qasim, formed in Djibouti in 2000. The warlords were also an obstacle. They established a huge anti-government coalition and were able to overthrow it. They planned for the Nairobi conference that led to the creation of the present government. This government was created to fulfill the desires of the Ethiopian government and its terrible plans for Somalia. Apparently this government was fighting our traditions and custom, Islam and the Muslims in general. Each candidate used to have his program, and he had to say explicitly that he would fight Islam and the Muslims. Abdullah Yusuf was one of the first of them. The situation was grim in Somalia at that moment. When the Somali population realized that the situation was constantly aggravating, it decided to form courts. People might not understand our concept of a court. Somali Sharia courts are kind of a mini-state, seeking to ensure peace and stability, achieve reconciliation between litigants, settle disputes, raise awareness, help citizens and guide them. Their role is not limited to the legal aspects, but also administrative areas and all the services they can handle. The Union of Islamic Courts achieved great success within a short period of time. It was established in 2003. It kept growing and was welcomed by the Somali people. They were Islamic courts, and the name was used to serve an international program known as the War on Terrorism. The Ethiopians wanted to exploit this appellation and used it in the way they like. They had convinced the Americans that what was happening in Somalia was nothing but terrorism and that it was necessary to fight us. They received huge amounts of money. Wars through various means were launched against the Somali people and the Union of Islamic Courts since its establishment. The latest in date was the invasion of the Somali capital and the main cities by the Ethiopian forces.
Are there any Al-Qaeda fighters in Somalia?
Let me tell you, there is no Al-Qaeda in Somalia. The Union of Islamic Courts does not have any relationship with Al-Qaeda. It was chosen by the Somali people to serve clear objectives and aims, and they were achieved. Nothing has changed. The Union of Islamic Courts was founded on a clear vision and continued along the same line. These are rumors serving the Ethiopian plan inside Somalia.
Your vision for a state is similar to that of Al-Qaeda or the Taliban.
First of all, this is not true. Strictness and moderation and other trends were not mentioned in Islam. These are political terms used to describe Muslims for a certain period of our history. We have not interfered in other people's freedoms or harmed their interests. Once freedoms ends where another freedom begins. These were rumors. Some individuals might have committed some mistakes, but there were no serious mistakes at the level of the Union of Islamic Courts as an institution. We have to differentiate between the individual's behavior and the institution's behavior. This country lived in chaos for 16 years. We have never seen a new force enjoying such a great level of discipline, and I don't think this will happen again. The Union of Islamic Courts was disciplined and achieved good results. Its success exceeded its mistakes. It reached results that were not achieved by any state in the past. Superpowers interfered in Somalia and tried to restore peace and stability, but they failed miserably. On the contrary, and within a short period of time, the Union of Islamic Courts was able to restore peace and stability, to unite people, and to lift psychological barriers recently caused by the war in Somalia.
Such achievement cannot be reached by the Union of Islamic Courts alone. Who is supporting the Union of Islamic Courts? Who is providing you with money and assistance?
Why not? Why can't the Union of Islamic Courts achieve all this by itself, as long as it has the determination, the loyalty, and the people's support? There's no problem about this. It is the Somali people that has been supporting the Union of Islamic Courts, and it continues to do so.
Some say you've been receiving funds from organizations like Al-Qaeda or others that want to support the establishment of a hardline Islamic State in Somalia.
This is another lie. We in the Union of Islamic Courts used to work as volunteers. None of the Union of Islamic Courts members used to receive a salary. The maximum we used to get was food from time to time. We found ourselves facing a crisis. We have decided to sacrifice our work and life in order to change the situation and to save Somalia. I don't think that. If there was support, when the foreign troops intervened in Somalia, they had the financial and other forms of support, but they couldn't help in any way. We had the determination, willingness to make sacrifices. There's a difference between the ones who want to sacrifice everything and those who want to gain. The Union of Islamic Courts did not want to make any gain. They wanted to make sacrifices for the sake of the Somali people and in order to save the country from this problem.
How did you finance the projects targeting the society? You used to be armed. How did you finance all these projects?
When the Union of Islamic Courts was established, we did not have weapons or money. However, we had the determination and the idea. The Somali people were armed, so we asked them to arm us so that we could fulfill our duty. We also asked them to finance us so that we can carry on. During the first 6 months, we succeeded and we were able to gain the sympathy and the trust of the Somali people. Our support continued and grew bigger. We pursued our journey until we achieved a great success inside the capital. Then war broke out between us and the warlords, who were supported by the US. We fought this war and we were expecting that we all would be executed. But we decided not to run away or leave this battle. We had only 2 choices, either to die as martyrs or to succeed in our confrontation. We prevailed, seized their weapons, and took power again. Our victory in this war gave us a big impetus. We confiscated new weapons and spread our influence in many regions. After that, we opened back the airport and the port. After consultation with the people and with their consent, we imposed some minimal taxes in order to expedite business.
Okay, you have been victorious in these battles, but what about the defeat after that? Would you describe to us what happened? How did Mogadishu fall easily?
When we felt that they wanted to enter Mogadishu and they began to bombard all the areas where our troops were, we said that we have to withdraw. The entry into the Somali capital and its bombardment will harm many of the Somali people. We decided then to withdraw our troops and leave it up to the Somali people and to the warlords to decide their future. We were expecting that the Ethiopian troops would not enter the capital after we withdrew. However, contrary to our expectation, they entered the capital and there were cases of rape, murder, abduction and abuse that targeted Somalis from all backgrounds. Following these events, resistance restarted.
Where did your troops go after you withdrew from Mogadishu?
We withdrew the troops from the capital and deployed them in areas far away from the capital in a way that would make them invisible.
Are these troops still present and firmly holding together in some particular Somali areas?
Our troops are present. With God's help, they are holding together and united in solidarity. There are direct contacts between us.
Immediately after the fallout of Mogadishu and your withdrawal, there were reports about massacres, murders, air bombardment against your troops. How do you describe this? Did it really happen?
They used to bombard our areas, even before we withdrew from the Somali capital and the cities. However, with God's help, the enemy was not able to achieve its goals. The losses our troops incurred were minor and insignificant. We thank God for this.
هناك طبعا قوات توجهت إلى الجنوب.
Some of your troops moved to the south. There were reports that those troops were besieged in one area. There were no media, cameras or news reported by the press. What happened to the troops that were besieged in the southern part of Somalia? Were they exterminated?
أنا كنت من ضمن الذين ذهبوا إلى جنوب الصومال.
I was among those who went to the south of Somalia. They wanted to besiege us, but this did not happen. We took our precautions